Welcome to Evolving Ideas. I'm Elaine Smitha, the most exciting show in Olympia. We deal with alternative issues, things that might be called far out. And that's great because it's a cutting edge show, dealing with things that you can't really... Welcome to Evolving Ideas. I'm Elaine Smitha. This is Olympia's own most exciting alternative television show for the intellectually daring, for those who want to know something beyond the normal that they can't get through ordinary means. So we really deal with much of this kind of thing on this show, and I really thank you for joining me on this evolutionary journey into the knowledge of who we are. My guest on this segment is Joy Gilbert, who has been abducted by alien entities since she was a little over 3 years of age, and it has happened hundreds of times. And we're going to look into her experience and what she can tell us about this, because many of us have not had that experience. And yet I'm being contacted by many people who've heard that Joy was coming to town and was going to be here, and who have had alien abductions themselves. So join me in welcoming Joy Gilbert. Joy.
Thank you, Elaine.
Right off, I want to acknowledge that you have written this book.
Yes.
Called It's a Time to Remember. And this is your story, isn't it?
It is. In that book, I chronicle my first memory, my first encounter memory, and I go back into my childhood, and I am able to pinpoint certain experiences that I had had throughout my life, that were related to the alien abduction phenomena, and yet I had no way to know that I was having these experiences. Missing time.
So you didn't know this in the very beginning?
Well, when they first came in 1993, I became aware.
That's when you were aware.
That's right. So I became aware immediately of how all the things that had happened to me in my childhood and in my adolescence were related to this phenomena. See, I had thought that the experiences that I'd had throughout my life were just isolated incidents that really didn't happen. Yeah. And then at the moment I was told it's time to remember, it was like everything just kind of came together at one point for me. And I saw that all connected.
That's very interesting. Well, didn't they put an implant in you? I mean, we hear that a lot about alien abductions, and they put implants in, or they take the seed out, and propagate and mix with their own breed, and trying to perfect something better than what they've got. Tell our viewers about that.
Well, I think that is one of the most difficult. Those are two of the most difficult issues that people have to deal with the alien abduction phenomena. And most of what we experience in our life, of course, is based on perception, what we're taught about the world. So if you look at, for me, when I speak about the implants, if you look at the possibility that our body is a vehicle, it's a car, and sometimes it's our chariot, sometimes the car needs to be taken to the doctor or needs to be taken in order to work properly. If you have something wrong with your heart or something wrong with an organ in your body, you take your body to a doctor to care for it and make it better. Now, these bodies are incredible tools. They have the ability to experience life other than what we perceive as normal. If we're only thinking in terms of our 3 to 7% or 3 to 10% of the brain, then we can only perceive that what we see and what we hear is all there is to life. But when we have what are perceived as paranormal experiences, we think, oh, there's something else happening, and then scientists tell us there's 97 to 10% of the brain that we're not using, and microbiologists tell us that we're only using 1% of our DNA. So I am getting to the answer here, I really am. So what I'm trying to say is that there is knowledge that is too sophisticated for us to have in the regular community, the the medical community that exists at this time. My perception of the implants, when I realized that I had implants, and I realized that the doctor was taking them out of me on the ship, he told me that it was no longer necessary for me to have the implant. And what I became aware of, even though I was shocked because I didn't even know I had an implant, I became aware that that implant allowed me to tap into a certain frequency of light that my body, as it was not able to tap into. So my perception of the implants that people are so devastated about is very positive, Elaine.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is.
One of the most profound experiences, I guess it's been reported about alien abductions, was Travis Walton.
Yes.
Which the movie Fire in the Sky was made after his experience. And he himself has said that it was slightly dramatized by Hollywood, you know, a little scenes and things. When I mentioned this to you, you said, well, I've had all the same experiences that Travis Walton had, but my perception was very different.
Yes,
I think in the movie, the one vivid scene where they have his eyes all opened really wide, and then they come at him with this penetrating utility to pierce his eye, you know, and he's terrorized by this.
Yes.
And you had a similar experience.
I did, and I talk about that in my book.
Oh, do you?
I
Okay.
do. But like you said,
I know I've read your book, but
you didn't know where you got that.
Well, no, I knew that because I heard you say that on the radio when I heard you on Art Bell's show.
Ah, okay.
But I guess I just kind of melded it all together.
For me, even though this body feels pain, it's not like I see myself separate from my body. It's that I understand that this body is something I use while I live in this plane of existence. It is not who I am. So when the beings removed the implant, I understood what that implant had been placed into my body for. And when they came back and implanted the crystal through my eye.
A crystal through your eye?
They implanted, they had me sit in a chair that looked much like a dentist chair, and they inserted a needle into my eye, into my brain. And on the tip of that object that they inserted into my eye here, my left eye, was a small crystal, and that crystal
must have been really finite.
Was, well, now if you think that you are your body and that your molecules are dense, then that would make us think that anything big would hurt. Okay?
Good point.
But if you understand that your particles are not what they appear to be, then, and if you have the knowledge and the ability to manipulate molecules, then you can
move them out of the way and go through it
without causing damage to skin and tissue and brain matter, if you will. And so this was implanted on my pineal gland, and things really, obviously, when they told me it's time to remember, my life changed.
I would think so.
Because I did, but at the implantation of this exquisite jewel, if you will, things really were different.
So did they tell you it's time to remember when they removed it, or when they put it in?
When I was first on the ship on January 31st, 1993, at my first remembering, they removed the implant, an implant from my abdomen.
So it wasn't this one.
No, before they told me that it's time to remember.
I see. So they removed the one in your abdomen and then said it's time for you
Now,
to
when they removed the one in my abdomen, I was aware that that implant had been in my body for the purpose of aligning my frequencies up to them. And at the point that they removed it, I understood that my body had adjusted to that frequency of light, and that particular implant was no longer necessary for the maintenance of my tool and my ability to relate to them on that frequency.
Is the one in your pineal still there?
Yes.
And do you think
Yes.
that's what has made it you able and responsible for remembering?
No, I don't. I think that is part of the process of becoming a fully enlightened human being. When I lived with the Tibetan Lamas, one of the ways that one of the things that happened when a Tibetan Lama died, somebody who was considered very accomplished, very enlightened, very knowledgeable, was that they would burn the bodies, okay? And when they
still do that in
yes,
India.
they do. They still do that anywhere. When they burn the bodies, what they would find is crystals in the skull. So when this implant was placed into me, I didn't quite get it completely at that moment, even though I did, if you will. But everything fit together from all the knowledge I'd received throughout my life. So I saw this for what it was. And I understood that since we are made of light, when we are truly experiencing diamond mind,
Diamond mind?
that's what it's called in Tibetan Buddhism,
Really?
that your mind literally turns to light and crystallizes.
I love it.
So I'm suggesting that as a person goes into enlightenment and maintains and sustains that level of consciousness while they're in a body and they're living in the world, that they actually begin to crystallize.
Really?
Yes.
Is it just the brain or the physical form?
The physical form.
That's fascinating. So are you
You've never
saying-
heard that here before.
No,
You've never
I never-
heard that.
no, I never heard that
Nobody's
before.
heard it before. I'm the only one who's saying it.
That's fascinating. Well, you rather infer that everyone has an implant.
Yes, I do infer. I think that we, as a human race, often perceive ourselves as in control of our lives.
Oh, free will.
Exactly.
I mean, I want to have charge of my life.
Exactly.
How can I, exert my free will?
Exactly. When in reality, we are an exquisite aspect, an exquisite part of creation. And as part of creation, we we have no free will.
We have no free will?
No, and we have no choice. There's only the perception that we have choice.
But we've been living under this modality that we have free will and that we make choice. I mean, there's all kinds of choices out there.
Sure, that's the perception. But if you look at the way creation organizes itself, you'll know that creation is doing a fine job without anything that
Without
we
our
could
interference?
think. Exactly.
So if
I'm
we-
not saying we would interfere, because we can't.
Yes, well, when one says, well, I have a destiny for this career, for instance. I mean, like, this is my destiny. They would like to think that this was their chosen path and that they made this consciously,
Right.
and that they are moving steadily toward that by
Right.
taking the proper steps to lead us there,
Right.
or to lead this person there, whatever.
Right.
So what you're saying is that this has all sort of been preordained?
Exactly.
It has?
Exactly. What will be has already happened.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Yes. What will be, all the things that we think are coming in the future have already occurred.
Now
So
you-
there's nothing that we can do to change the inevitable, progress or the
Evolution?
inevitable, the evolution of
Of
mankind.
mankind.
Or humankind. It is a natural tendency of life to fulfill itself. And we think that we're doing it, but the impulse of creation that moves for us, through us, and for us, is what is sustaining and maintaining us. It is not what we are thinking. It is not we are not who we think we are. We are so incredibly exquisite. We are so much more than what we think. That's why, oftentimes people will go into imagery and they'll go, they'll do affirmations and they'll think, I'm going to wish myself a car.
And you work really hard at that.
And you work really hard at that. Is it the will of creation that you have that Mercedes-Benz? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But you ain't going to have it if it ain't the will of creation. Pure and simple.
So would you say that when things are moving along on a path of destiny, we'll use that as a term here, and it's meant to be on that path, that everything works, that it flows?
Very good. Yeah.
And then when it doesn't, then you just get block, 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 and you say, wait a minute, I'm getting so many blocks. This probably is not the way I'm supposed to go. So you turn and take another juncture.
Exactly. And creation is constantly showing you and nurturing you and leading you and guiding you in the direction that you were meant to go. Period.
Through this methodology?
Through this unfoldment. I like to refer to it as unfoldment, natural unfoldment. And it is the natural process of the human being.
That's
like a flower. I cannot go enough into the way creation operates by showing flowers, because it's like the seed that's planted in the earth, you know. I mean, no matter what you do, you plant a seed in the earth, and that seed has to break in order for the plant to emerge. Then it has to tear through the soil into the light, and then it grows into a plant, and then into a flower that blooms. Did you do that? No.
No.
Did I do that? No. That is the natural unfoldment
of the life force.
Of the life force.
Yes.
Yes.
I noticed that the weeds keep coming up, you know.
Yes.
And I ponder this because we wonder about how long seeds live, you know, and they have found that in the soil the seeds will lay dormant for 7 years or 9 years or whatever, maybe even longer, and then when the conditions are proper, then it begins to grow.
Manifest.
And yes, it does. And I noticed that I look at the weeds and I say, you're very persistent. And I find that creation is very persistent.
Yes.
And even though I might pluck out one weed, there will be another one, because nature abhors a vacuum, and it will simply, another seed, maybe not the same plant, but another seed will come up and say, gosh, here's my opportunity. Gosh, I better go for it right now. There's the light. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And there they are.
And there they are.
This is amazing.
That's the nature of creation.
So you concur with this.
They say that's why it's so difficult for me to perceive of the concept of choice. Before the beings came, absolutely, I thought I was doing something. I thought I was meditating. I thought I was going here. I thought I was going there. The reality is where you are where you need to be in every given moment, not because you want to be there, no matter what you think, but because creation has decided that that is where you're supposed to be.
So if you have a platter of food on a table, such as on, say, a yacht, a trip, or a cruise, say, you know, and they've got this long table filled with all the choices of foods that you could possibly imagine happening.
Yes.
And you walk down and you say, now, gee, look at all the choices that I have.
Exactly.
Now, I could pick this or this or this, you know, and so you load your plate up. And do we, in life, handle it the same way?
No. And we don't when we're choosing what we eat either.
So are we choosing the very things that the body needs?
We are choosing what is right to be ingested at that moment, whether we are conscious of what we're doing or not. We are fulfilling the will of creation in every moment, at one level of another.
That's very fascinating.
At one level of creation or another.
Whether it's conscious or subconscious.
Whether it's conscious or subconscious doesn't make any difference. Creation is constantly fulfilling its will, not ours. The only thing that we can do is let go. And
just let
stop trying to manipulate, control, cajole, monitor, manipulate, all those things, our lives, and let ourselves be. In the letting go is the fulfillment of creation. is the isness.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because I've had some situations where consciously I was having some difficulty in coming to some kind of terms that would that I would feel justified, you know, if this was the right outcome. And then I've adopted this motto, you know, is to have no attachment to the outcome. And since I've done that, when I get into this situation, I say, well, have no attachment to the outcome. And then I do let go. At that moment, I let go. And then it's like suddenly there would be a solution. Suddenly someone would call. You know, and there it is. And so it takes away so much judgment and so much
energy,
all
wasted energy.
Exactly.
You know?
That gets very wearing.
And it's going to be the way it is anyway.
Well, see,
no matter how much you worry about it.
Yes. Well, for myself, I really have to say that the change occurred in me when I realized that I should have no attachment to the outcome. Because I was really hooked into some things that had happened years ago, and it was really a torment to me. And it was like it kept popping up for me to deal with every time. You know, it would just pop up, and then I feel really bad and everything. And then finally, someone said to me, well, just can you go back into each one of those situations and say, you know, have no attachment to how each one of those situations occurred, or what, you know, whatever happened. However the individuals were involved, just give up and say, well, you know, I have no attachment to the outcome. And when I did that, all the issues flattened out. It was the most amazing thing. It was so liberating, and suddenly I felt free. It was like I wasn't carrying all this baggage around with me anymore. It was the most awesome experience.
Beautiful.
So what you're saying is confirming this.
Yeah, absolutely. So just eliminate, what is it? I am not proposing that people not develop their minds. The mind is an incredible tool, and it's important to feed it if that's the feeling. But what I am saying is to let go of what you perceive. Allow it to flow through you. Eat all you need to eat. I mean, take in knowledge, take in nourishment, take in understanding, take in all the things that you feel you need to experience as you feel you need to experience them. But don't hold on to them, because they are the flow of life. They are not yours. They never will be.
Yes, I have adopted that saying many years ago, nothing belongs to us.
Nothing.
And I've also understand that we're moving through things.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what happens with the molecules in the body. It's moving through us. Right?
Yes, energy, light is all passing through us all the time. And I think back about when my daughter was just a little girl and she became very ill. And it was shortly after her birth. And I was a new mother and real ignorant about what it was to be a new mother. And she became very ill, and I didn't know that she was ill. And I was at home alone, and this being came in, and I felt this being just kick me in the butt, you know, and I got up and I went to her crib and took her to the hospital. My husband and I got her there quick. He had been teaching at Rollins College down in Orlando, Florida. And when we got there, the doctor said if we hadn't gotten her in right away, she would have been dead. So at that time, what was so critical for me at that time was I realized that I had no control over this being's life.
Yes.
And as a mother, I had to let go. And as a being, I had to do the best I knew how and let go of the outcome. So, you know, I just gave her up, you know, to God. I said, look, I can't do this. You know, this is your child. And that is the truth. We are all the child of God, each of us. And each of us has a life and a destiny and a purpose. And each of us, every moment that we exist, fulfill and serve that purpose for the efficiency of creation. Creation is incredibly efficient. You know, it is constant balance of light and dark. We are sustained in positive and negative energy. And so everything constantly has to be balanced.
The polarities.
Now, what do we see happening? We see that the earth is moving into light and people are moving into enlightenment. There's going to be thousands of years of absolute light where people are going to be in absolute bliss and joy. Why? Because it's time.
I think there's a readiness for this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think we've just about had it with this other side.
Well, we've experienced it.
We've learned it.
We've
learned.
experienced darkness.
Yes, we have.
And now we're ready to experience light.
Well, that's like the Middle Ages.
Yes. Yes.
And the Renaissance.
Exactly. And the same thing just keeps occurring. It's not...
It's a cycle?
It's the cycle of life. It's the cycle of the phenomenal existence. As light beings, as light essence, as creation itself manifests, it takes on positive and negative, and it continues throughout time and space. That doesn't change who we are. We are still, all of us, God, if you will, and creation. So we've never not been enlightened. We've never not known who we are. When is it that you go back to God? When is it that you go back to the love of creation? It's when your suffering becomes acute, that you begin the journey home. Okay? So where is the memory that you're not home come from?
That's a good point.
So it's when the disparity between who you know you are and your experience becomes acute that you begin the journey home. So we have always known who we were. There's never a moment that we didn't know who we were.
Oh, that's a good point. So what you're saying is all the traumas and things that we have going on in our life, once we have this pain, this anguish, we begin to question and begin our journey seriously on going back. So it has purposeful good, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. It's going into the darkness and then back home into the light.
That's beautiful.
Into the darkness.
That's beautiful.
And it's the natural flow of creation.
Yes.
And it will always be this way. It will never be any different. There will always be, it will always happen this way. And like, it's really important, just because the sun sets here in Olympia and Yelm, it doesn't mean the sun is not arising in Australia.
That's true.
So the sun is always there. So we are never, never not enlightened. It is just that we have moments, flashes of darkness. We perceive them maybe as years, but if you look at the whole spectrum of creation and the vastness of all that is and all that ever has been, it's that long.
A moment.
It's as long as a butterfly lands on the tip of a needle and then flies away.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Do you have alien babies?
Beautiful question. Beautiful question. We have such an interesting perception of ourselves. We think that when we have children, it's a creation, and it's an exquisite creation of God. And if children are created in some other way that we don't think perceptually is correct, then those entities and those beings are not of God and creation. My experience with these beings is they have taken my eggs, and there have been manipulation of the genetic material in my eggs and the genetic material in other manifestations of creation, other beings, other aspects of creation. And from those manipulations, beings have, yes, taken life. And for me, I see that as exquisite.
Have you ever seen any of them?
Yes. Yes.
Did you hold them?
Yes.
Did they look like us?
No.
What did they look like?
They looked like a combination of me and you. And yet, they didn't look different. Physically, they looked different. And physically, they could not be sustained in this atmosphere.
Do they have a soul?
Absolutely. What doesn't? Everything has light and soul.
Okay, what kind of an environment would they be happy in, whether they could live in?
What kind of environment?
Well, I mean, I presume they can't live in our environment because
their physical needs are different.
They're not based on oxygen, probably.
Right.
And so they have to have a different constituent for their life form to exist.
Right. The other thing that's also interesting is that they have the ability to manipulate matter. They have the ability to move interdimensionally in time and space. They have the ability to change their ships to look like planes, and from planes they have the ability to make them look like ships.
So this is shape-shifting?
Shape-shifting, you know, yes, absolutely. They have all those abilities. They've been here forever. People are always saying, oh, how come it's only now? How come they're arriving now? Oh, they're just coming. They're coming to our planet to rape our women or you know, reap the soil. Their worlds have died, and so they don't have anywhere to go. I hear this in the literature. The reality is these beings have always existed, and they have always been here. It's just that only now we're able to see them.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's only now that we've become aware of them, you see. It's not the reverse.
Well, I have heard that that they have been here for a very long time, and the comment has been, well, if they wanted to do something to us, they had plenty of time to do it, and all they've been doing is observing.
Well, they've done more than observe.
Well, they may be participating, but we're not like you and I are sitting here talking.
They've protected. Yes. And they have shown where they are. There was a time in 1973, if you look at the research, some of the research on this, and maybe you've heard this, but there was a time in 1973 when along the border, the Canadian border of the United States, and along the border of the USSR, that at one time all the what is it, those satellite things that shoot up and kill people? I don't even know what they're called. All the missiles were inoperable, and UFOs were sighted over each site where the missiles were. And I think that's a very powerful message.
Yes.
There was another time when I read in the literature where a pilot during World War II was preparing to fire on a German plane, and in that moment there was a UFO that appeared, and his plane became inoperable, and at the same time the German plane became inoperable. So, you know, these things have been happening all the time. You know, we see them, we hear them, we experience them, but we deny them.
Yes.
Because we don't understand them. They bring fear.
This is true.
So it's important to me that people see the positive side of this phenomena and understand, even if they perceive that these beings are bad or evil, that they understand that what they perceive creates their reality, and that may not be the reality.
So everyone's allowed their own thought process and their own decision.
If they see evil, then they'll experience evil.
Oh, so you're saying that whatever they perceive is what they experience.
Exactly. We are, each of us, a reflection of each other. So,
I've heard that before.
You know, so if you have an experience, like for me, the difference between Travis Walton and me and myself, when I went to be with them, at one point in my experience with them, I saw them, and this was long before this incident occurred. This was something I remembered. This was so powerful for me, Elaine. When I saw them, I felt incredible love toward them and saw how exquisitely beautiful they were, okay? And in the moment that I saw them as beautiful, that was reflected back into my heart instantaneously. And I understood that the love that was in my heart and the acceptance that was in my heart was manifested for me through them.
Oh, interesting.
So what I was
reflection.
experiencing with them, it's the same thing. What I experienced with them was myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an experience of me. Mm-hmm. So if I had an experience of light, I had an experience of self.
That's beautiful.
So
they're just a reflection of who you are.
they really are. You see who you are in them. I have a friend of mine, actually, she's a doctor, and she had these experiences as well, and I met her. A few of us met in San Francisco, and this one woman was telling me how ugly she thought they were. And, you know, and I remembered back to that experience I had and how sad I was for her. Yes, you look at a little frog, and maybe you could think that was ugly. How? You know, how can you think anything that is created in this creation is ugly? I can't imagine it.
Because everything has its place, doesn't
And
it?
it's absolute perfection.
Sometimes you see these little tiny bugs flying around.
I know.
You know, they're so itsy
know, little
bitsy,
gnats
and
or
you think,
something.
my goodness, this little creature is perfect in its
Yeah,
formation. And it's just
exactly.
amazing when you see that,
Exactly.
from minute to large.
Exactly.
Sometimes I marvel at the squirrels because I watch them leap from tree to tree,
Oh, yeah.
and it amazes me because it's like that leap of faith, that they know
Yes.
that there's going to be something to substantiate their jump, you know, their leap, that
Yes.
there is something over there.
Yes.
And I marvel, and I think, would that we had that much faith within ourselves
Yes.
to be able to make that leap as confidently
Exactly.
as the squirrel.
Exactly. And that is the only place to be.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. It's the
That's
only
really
place to be. That's
beautiful.
beautiful. Thank you. It's a
You're
wonderful
welcome.
analogy.
You're welcome. So I think, you know, Travis Walton in that movie, they showed almost like little grays, and
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
that looked nondescript in terms of intelligence. They just didn't look like they were, you know, like they just looked like they were doing a job.
Uh-huh.
Did you, in your encounters, have an association with the Greys, or were they a variety of different entities, or?
Very good, very good. Yes, there is a variety of different entities that exist from different planets.
Really different planets.
Yes,
So where did
yes,
you visit?
yes.
Can you identify the planets?
It was not from the solar system.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about in my book one place that I went to. But if you look at yourself and you recognize that you are a microcosm and a reflection of the macrocosm, then you can go within yourself and you can be in all those places.
I've heard this.
This is true, because there is nothing that exists outside you that does not exist within you.
Now you're talking about consciousness.
I am talking about consciousness. That's all I've been talking about.
And projecting, I know, but where specifically now? That you can project your mind. This is, in essence, what remote viewing is about, is being able to project your mind to another location and see what is there, and
Right.
have that
Right.
that instant recognition and instant connection and
Right.
the gathering of knowledge at that particular
Right.
space.
I'm talking about something that may be the same as remote viewing, and that's a very good way to define it. But in essence, it's a place where you're not projecting yourself anywhere.
You're just being.
You just are it. So in the being, you have full access to all those places within all the universes. So there's never a need to go anywhere, or to project yourself anywhere, or to think about going anywhere. There is only the being and the isness, and in that place you have then access. It's interesting because people think that when someone goes into enlightenment that they have all these powers. And this is true.
Yes, I think so. I think that's perceived.
This is true. But the reality is that knowledge and awareness is only used for the will of creation. It's not used to serve someone's perception or someone's ego. So that's the difference between somebody who's truly enlightened and someone who's not. Anybody who would want someone to follow them, who would want to make money off people, who would want to lead them in their life and control the way they think without allowing them to know that the truth is within themselves is deceiving them.
That's wise. You're giving us great wisdom.
It's very important to know. A lot of people don't understand that. They follow
Somebody
from their
else's
heart,
ideal.
From their heart. And I totally understand the need at a certain level to do that. But you have to see who you're following.
Yes, one of my guests had said at one point, if you're going to follow someone, make sure that it is something that you are, personally going to benefit from.
Exactly.
In other words, look over their life and see whether or not it exhibits the mode that you want to emulate. And if so, then great, follow them. But if it doesn't, then don't.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And anybody, like I said, this is a real clear advice to give somebody who's interested in finding their way home. And people are out there searching, and they're going from one person to another, and they're not getting anything because they're not tapping into the people of substance. They're just, here, there, flitting from this belief to that belief. And so it's very important, if you're going to take advice from somebody, make sure that person lives at a level of consciousness that they can provide truth.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not something that will chain you to more delusion and more perception and more ignorance, but that they're offering something that will set you free from your delusion and your perception and your thinking mind.
To allow you to grow.
To allow you to experience knowledge. Experience knowledge and light.
But wouldn't that, in the end, allow you to grow in your own self-awareness? Or are you saying that that's not necessary?
It's not necessary. I'm saying that once you go home, you need no more food.
So where's home?
Inside yourself. It's through your feelings. The only way you can get there is through. There's two things that are really critical for going home. One is to understand that there is always going to be suffering in the phenomenal existence.
That's phenomenal is in this
Phenomenal is in this existence.
Yes, I think we think it's someplace else.
Exactly. It's right here. And to let go of the duality, take your mind out of, oh, I have to fight over this and fight over that. Be yourself. Be who you are in the world. Feel your feelings. Be the best person you can be. All those kinds of things, okay? But the only way you can go home is to transcend the phenomenal world. No amount of thinking is going to get you home. It's true. No amount of thinking will ever take you into enlightenment.
It's a feeling.
It's an experience.
An experience.
Yeah, it's a cognition. It's a comprehension. Exactly. Awareness. So it's something that has to be experienced. So that's really critical. And you can only do it through yourself. I don't live so that people can do it through me. I've done it. But I'm not here to show them to do it through me. I'm here to tell them that they have to do it through themselves.
That they can do it themselves.
Exactly. Yes.
So you are being a model for others to learn from.
Exactly.
That you can say, look, I did it, you can do it too.
Exactly. What am I? I'm a big white woman that was born in Seattle, Washington, and I did it.
There you go.
Well, that says it all. If I can do it,
anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it. If I can go home and live in absolute bliss and absolute peace and absolute joy and experience that every waking moment, so can everybody else.
That's really wonderful. I think
Yes.
everybody would like that.
Everybody, yes.
So everybody has an implant.
Everybody has experienced implants.
How many people would you say have been whisked aboard a ship by alien entities?
I would say everyone.
Really?
Yes.
At some point in their life?
Yes.
For what reason?
Exactly what I said about it.
To do the implantation?
To take care of the physical form. I mean, the reality is that human life is an experiment. And I don't mean that in a sense that it's not natural. Okay? What is the experiment? The experiment is not the form itself, but the experiment is bringing the light of God into the physical body. That is the experiment. People are always saying to me, oh, they're doing experiments on us. There is only one experiment happening, and the experiment of bringing consciousness and light into form. That is the experiment. How does that happen? You have to manipulate the body. If you're not enlightened, you're not fully functional. If you're not using 100% of your mind, if your DNA isn't completely activated in your whole body, you are not a functioning human being. Do we have anything on this level of creation that allows our body to transcend the 3 to 10% of the brain we use? No. But we have beings that exist in subtler layers of creation that exist there for the sole purpose of helping our bodies literally attune, if you will, to different frequencies of light. And these beings are the beings that I'm talking about, the beings I call my friends. You talked about grace. There are many beings that exist in all the worlds that can be counted. I mean, there is no way to count all the beings that exist. There are so many thousands and thousands and thousands of them. But what you can be sure of is that anything that exists in the love and the light of creation. Mm-hmm. And what you fear is the shadow.
That's true.
And what you doubt is the shadow of ignorance. So I encourage people to let their fear go and be their feelings and not be afraid of the darkness, because there is no such thing.
Is there reincarnation? Briefly?
Oh, beautiful. Reincarnation. When you go home, you see every aspect of creation as yourself. In that, you are recreated in each aspect of creation.
Sounds good to me.
It's wonderful.
Well, Joy, thank you very much for joining me on Evolving Ideas. We've come to the end of this show. It's been wonderful sharing with you all this wonderful exchange of knowledge. And I'd like to thank my viewers for watching, and to join us next time when we explore another avenue of creation on our marvelous universe. And tell your friends and neighbors to join us as well. We loved having you today and doing this show. So join me next time. I'm Elaine Smitha.